Welcome. Welcome, everyone.
Yes, we have 12 participants. Welcome. We are going to wait a few minutes to get started so that we don't lose anyone who wants to trickle in, but we will get started here very shortly.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the last day, but certainly not the least day of the conference.
I know, the last session. We're the cleanup hitters. Up to bat. What was our final count of sign up, Davey? You just mentioned it.
39 now.
39. Okay, so we're up to 13. We'll give it another minute and see if we can get closer to that 39. We'd love to come closer. Oh, we lost one.
Give it maybe 2 more minutes or so.
Yeah. I wish we had some jazzy music to play in the background and some appetizers.
Regrettably, my saxophone is in the other room.
I know, that's right, David. The saxophone. That would have been perfect. We are doing that next time. And we have to thank Maddie for being our tech volunteer here. And her expertise is very helpful. We appreciate it. And just to clarify, Maddie, we can't see our participants, but we can hear them if we ask a question and they answer, correct?
Yep, everybody will be able to come off mute to ask questions and talk in the breakout rooms.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Let's get started and we'll
Okay,
let
yeah,
folks
it's
continue to roll in.
12:33. Yeah, and as they roll in, they are most welcome. Hello, everyone. I'd like to know how everyone is. Welcome to the session. Build your foundation, become the visionary of your housing solution. I can't tell you how enthusiastic SNPA is to be here and unveil for the very first time our housing toolkit called We Need Housing, Now What? You are all a select audience that gets a preview of our toolkit before we unveil it to the universe tomorrow officially. And part of the reason we're here is to get your feedback and advice about ways we could improve or change the toolkit and where you think its strengths are as well. We want to use that feedback to make it more accessible and effective to the folks who need it. But before we dive in, I'd love to know about any other great sessions you've attended today. What comes to mind? Please unmute and tell. I'm sure there's a slew of them from this morning.
Hi, I'm Ramona.
Hi, Ramona.
I attended a session about storytelling. So basically, helping us come up with like a 5-minute pitch. If you do run into somebody, if you run into Congress or a decision maker or anyone, just being prepared with that 5-minute pitch. What is the issue? How does it affect the community? What is the solution? And it was something that I never even thought about until I attended that session today.
Wow, I wish I could have been there. That sounds incredibly robust and useful. I hope you find a lot of applications for that. Anyone else have a session they would love to share at the top? We love to hear inspiring stories. Shy. Well, they're keeping their sessions to themselves. That's okay. I sadly did not get to attend any this morning, preparing for this session, but oh, Kayla, yes.
So sorry if my little ones are in the background. However, I just got
We love the little ones.
Yeah, I just got finished presenting Houseless, Not Hopeless, and it went really well. I'm glad that we were able to give folks a perspective and even advice on how to interact with the youth more when it comes to being unhoused and all the things in that area. I would just say that everyone can watch it back if you're interested in seeing how that went, but it went really well.
Oh, wow. Did you say, I heard the title. Did you say you were the presenter?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I hope we don't pale in comparison, but I have every confidence we will not. Again, I want to thank Maddie, who's here for our technical support. As you've likely already heard, the platform of Whova and Zoom is new to all of us. So please extend us grace and forgiveness if the technology stumbles around a bit today. But we're glad to have Maddie's support. And I would love to have everyone in the room, 15 people, introduce themselves. But there are too many of you, which is a happy thing for us. But I'll have to settle for introducing our session leaders, starting off the top here. So first I'd like to introduce Joe. I'm honored to introduce this speaker, Joe Kavallakis. I've practiced this several times last night. They have added so much value to the work of SNPAA. Joe is from New Jersey. She has a background. They have a background in youth services, LGBTQ, and support, and they bring a powerful lived experience perspective to everything we do at SNPAA. They have a BA in English, Sociology, and Secondary Education. Joe has been an essential partner for us in shaping our work, from helping pilot our new support groups to speaking in webinars and national summits to collaborating closely with our scientific director, Dr. Arun Nagendra. She brings lived experience into the fireside chats that we host that translate our research into real life. So we feel very, very fortunate to have them in our community. Can you go to the next slide? There's Joe. This is our speaker panel. So next I'd like to introduce Davey Yu. Davey serves as a part-time consultant with SNPAA, where he contributes strategic insight rooted in lived experience. Since February 2024, he has co-led the creation of another of our toolkits. We have more than one, and that one's the I'm Diagnosed Now What toolkit, and it has been downloaded 1,000 times from our website. So we know these toolkits work, and we know Davey's good at creating them. He also has led a launch of new support groups and managed 1,500 plus resource line calls. We have a resource line where people can call in, and he supports those individuals and families who do call in. His work with SNPAA includes co-authoring and co-developing this very housing toolkit and supporting a volunteer programmer team that is aggregating data all over the nation to find U.S. housing options for those diagnosed with schizophrenia and serious mental illness. And he's led the team's efforts to ensure the authorship development methodology for the housing toolkit is grounded in real life perspectives, expert insights, and lived experiences. So just a little background there. What you're seeing today is phase 1 of the toolkit. Phase 2 of the toolkit is going to be a Zillow-like search engine where people can actually go and put in filters and yield options for housing wherever they are. So we're super excited about that down the line. And I'm Erica Singler. I lead public affairs and communications at Schizophrenia and Psychosis Action Alliance. Before coming to SNPAA, I spent my most recent career as a science writer, also a pharmaceutical and health writer, and I was a high school and college English teacher before that for 13 years. On a personal level, this work is close to my heart and home. My brother Ian lives with schizophrenia, and I've played a caregiver role at various points in his life. It's that experience that makes resources like this housing toolkit very important to me. They bring together, all the toolkits really, bring together practical information that families desperately need. And this housing toolkit gives information that could have changed the trajectory for my brother and my family had we had one like this to help us. So next slide. As I gave the introduction, I will now give the floor to Joe for them to open up our session and our hearts with their story of lived experience that has so informed our work. Welcome and take it away, Joe.
Great. Thank you, Erica. I'm very passionate about this packet due to my lived experience with severe mental illness and homelessness. When I was growing up, we lived in poverty, and severe mental illness and addiction in my family played a part in that. Sometimes our food looks like pickle sandwiches, watered down ramen. There was not enough beds for us, and frequently we were crashing other places. When I was queer, I first moved out at 17 after coming out, and again, I was couch surfing. When I was in my undergraduate degree, my symptoms got a lot worse. I was seeing the devil, seeing aliens outside of my house. I became agoraphobic. And this really led to me in my 20s going in and out of work after my serious mental illness had a break. I was in and out of work in my 20s, working as a social worker for 2 to 6 months over and over again, but eventually winding up in psychiatric treatment every time. Also, at my jobs, I faced discrimination due to transphobia, homophobia, and ableism. At my one job, they said that trans people were trying to look through the cracks in the bathroom, gay marriage shouldn't be legal. And when I came back from treatment, even though I was one of the best employees, I had a 10-page write-up to get me out the door, and I was alone on a floor all by myself away from the other social workers. Every time that I got a job, I would get an apartment, but it would only last short term. And these apartments were unsafe with like gun violence on the block and drug activity, roaches, just unsafe housing. Later at 26, I had my biggest psychotic break. And at that point, I was couch surfing as well. In general, I was going to my MSW program at that time. And once again, the external factors of transphobia, homophobia, and ableism took a part in me not completing my program. I was told that trans people were hermaphrodites. Classes were allowed to mock certain mental illnesses. And from that point, whenever I made suggestions and filed bias reports, nothing happened. And I continued to have to drop out. Afterwards, I moved into what we called communal living, but was just a dilapidated house with 7 people. There was 3 of us per bed, roaches everywhere. We had curtains for walls, even around the toilet. The kitchen collapsed and ruined all of my earthly possessions. Today, I am very lucky. I live with my father, and it gives me a chance to have a caregiver. If God forbid something were to happen, it took me 6 years to win SSDI, and I wouldn't have any other housing options. I think that this kit is a really good spot to begin and look for housing treatment, and I'm passionate about it coming out and launching it today. Thank you. Back to Erica.
Thank you, Joe. That is such an exceptional story of endurance. And that's only the second time I've heard it, but I think it shows that success is really a measure of what you overcome. And if that's true, you're as successful as they get. And you also have the courage to tell that story. So we thank you very much. So we're going to move on to the next slide and talk about our agenda. We're hoping that this session will help you and help us. We hope first it will help you understand the challenges in navigating housing and pathways for finding housing nationwide specific to people with serious mental illness or SMI. Second, explore our housing toolkit that we're so excited about and the companion worksheets for actionable steps to take toward finding housing. And Third, engage in our breakout discussions to talk about those key considerations in the section that we're going to explore in each breakout room. Then we'll reconvene to reflect on applying and improving the housing toolkit for all our communities and discuss any questions you might have. All right, so first, next slide. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Schizophrenia and Psychosis Action Alliance, or SNPAA, which honestly isn't any easier to say. SNPAA trips over my tongue, so bear with me. First, we need to say that we are so grateful to be part of this conversation with all of you, because we believe spaces like this event are the places that real change starts in community, in honoring lived experience, and in collaboration with each other. SNPAA is a national nonprofit organization striving to shatter barriers to treatment, survival, and recovery. And that begs the question, how do you do that? Well, we do that by pushing for policies and that expand access to care. We are actually based in the DC region, and we have a presence on Capitol Hill. So we're fortunate to be able to advocate for legislation and policies that affect people with SMI on a daily basis. We also build tools and conduct research into schizophrenia and psychosis as neuropsychiatric conditions that are not unlike other chronic conditions over which people have very little, if any, control. We fight for things like housing access, treatment access, Medicaid coverage, crisis services, and making sure all along with all of those endeavors that the voices of people with lived experiences are part of the policy process and part of the treatment process and part of the support process, not an afterthought. So we really focus on the points where the system breaks down, and the system breaks down at places that need the solutions. So we want to make those solutions as accessible and useful as possible. Next slide. So our vision is a cure. Pretty simple. Because we believe, and our science backs us up, that that will eventually be possible. Not tomorrow, not this year, and we're not sure when, but with the dedication and research, we believe it will happen. But until then, we have our mission, and our mission is to meet the urgent needs until we find a cure, to advance systemic change that promotes recovery. Until we get a cure, we can see people recover by focusing on our 3 pillars, and that's listed in the mission. They are education and care, advocacy and public policy, and research. And you'll hear more from Davey in a minute about how these also underlay the foundation for our housing toolkit and are all interconnected. Our focus on education and care means that we run national education programs for clinicians and families. We are currently running a clinician program on clozapine, which is a medicine that often people don't have access to who could really benefit from it. Our focus on education and care means that if or someone you know needs support or help navigating things like housing or treatment or just figuring out what to do next, please call them up today and tell them that SNPA has helpline resources, education materials, and connections to organizations all across the country who can provide much support with just one phone call. And finally, our research is the foundation of all of our evidence-based work. We conduct and support studies that illuminate the real-world experiences of people with schizophrenia and psychosis, and we show the gaps in treatment, housing, and crisis response, and also we illuminate the caregiver burden. We generate evidence that drives the smarter policy, the better care, the outcomes that reflect what people with SMI actually need to survive and recover. At the end of the day, our goal is simple: to make sure that people living with schizophrenia and psychosis can navigate a system and a society that doesn't leave them behind. And from that, the Housing Toolkit was born to address the breakdowns and challenges that make finding housing difficult. And back to tell us about those challenges, please welcome Joe back as they describe how the lack of housing affects people with SMI. Again, Joe. Next slide.
So when we're talking about lack of housing and serious mental illness, what the landscape analysis has talked about is systemic gaps, like several of the ones I've mentioned, vague guidance, which I've experienced calling different case managers, trying to get help, everybody says like we have one option, which is Section 8 housing, and this toolkit reveals many. A lot of the resources are outdated as these resources can change every year. There are immense challenges faced, like scarcity of housing supports for complex medical needs. For instance, when I was living with cancer 4 years ago and having schizophrenia at the same time, finding that care was near impossible. There's complicated financial considerations, given that in my 20s, I only lived on welfare, which was $200. And now with SSDI, it's still a challenge if I were to ever find housing just for myself. There's lack of care coordination between all different parts of the system that you're trying to talk to, complex overlapping health needs, which I touched on, and time-sensitive treatment requirements. There's also many more, but this is just a baseline of some of the obstacles that people face with serious mental illness and lack of housing. Next slide, please. So we have some statistics. You can read along with the screen, but I'm just going to touch on them. An estimated 21% of people experiencing homelessness in the US have a serious mental health condition. People living with schizophrenia and psychosis-related disorders are overrepresented in the homeless population. Schizophrenia only affects 1% of the population, but up to 20% of the homeless population by some estimates. So even though we're 1%, we are still taking up 20% of the homeless population. Additionally, within the homeless population, around 25 to 30% of chronically homeless adults have a serious mental illness like schizophrenia, underscoring the connection between untreated psychosis-related disorders and lack of long-term housing. Further, people with psychotic symptoms who lack supportive housing often end up being housed in prisons. In 2021, 8.8 of state prisoners and 3.2% of federal prisoners had a history of psychosis or schizophrenia. And it's important to note that the overrepresentation of our population is staggering. Next slide, please. I'm just going to share this quote that our organization does like to represent. Independent living and housing stability are core principles of the psychiatric recovering process. Only when basic needs such as safe, affordable, and permanent housing are met can individuals with SMI reintegrate into the community consistently, engage with mental health services, and begin or restart recovery. From my personal experience, the whole time I was struggling with housing, I was in and out of inpatients, partial hospitalization programs, and IOPs, about 6 of each. And at that time, I was struggling to survive, so I could not focus on my mental health recovery when at that time I was struggling so hard just to get my basic needs met. Next slide, please. And I'm over to Erica.
It's me. Thank you so much, Jill.
David.
I appreciate it.
That's okay.
SNPA takes a strategic approach to housing, recognizing the 3 primary pillars that make our work possible: research, education, and advocacy. So in the process of developing our housing toolkit, we took extensive measures to conduct a landscape analysis looking at existing peer-reviewed papers, research already done, resources that are already out there related to housing to identify those gaps and potentially help with providing guidance, a framework for people to follow through education in the development of this toolkit. Our ultimate goal is to incorporate this toolkit into a broader advocacy platform in which we can further ensure that the gaps, which are evident as the toolkit was created, are able to be addressed through effective public policy and other related efforts. You can certainly see our policy statements related to housing and homelessness the connection for that into treatment, wellness, and recovery overall through our website. Next, please. Through its collective experience in tapping into a vast network of folks that are diagnosed, caregivers, and advocates, SNPA has identified key barriers on the road to housing. And while we're committed to finding lasting and impactful solutions, we recognize that this toolkit doesn't necessarily fix those gaps, but certainly provides a framework that guides people along the way to finding housing for their loved ones or those that are close to them. Overall, our framework does start with an introduction. That document orients you in terms of the overall parts for the toolkit, how they're each connected to the worksheets. And each of those parts covers an essential topic related to housing. Part one, understanding your loved one's needs. Part two, evaluating options where you live. Part three, assessing financial considerations. And finally, taking all the previous parts, putting them together to build your plan. Each of the parts are accommodated by worksheets in which you can engage with the information from the content parts, but then apply that, explore the content as it relates to your own personal situation in applying, searching for, and navigating housing. Next slide, please. So the housing toolkit has three main content parts. Like I said, the introduction document prior to part one sort of orients you into the overall toolkit. But then diving into part one and understanding your loved one's needs, we explore various critical details that are essential to building that foundation, understanding age-related needs, preferences for activities of daily living, what is the personal status, symptoms that are being navigated, treatment, understanding the various supports needed with the needs that are ongoing. And so this part helps build the foundation around personal considerations that then guide the overall housing plan. And so part two, with evaluating options where you live, we undertake practical guidance in exploring local housing options, understanding the key terms that relate to knowing about housing, navigating housing, as well as understanding the pros and cons to the various types, ultimately designed to help make informed decisions about navigating the options while also understanding public services that are available. We dive into the various types of housing, including but not limited to supervised group homes, supported housing, apartments, Section 8, crisis housing, transitional housing, and more. And so this section orients in terms of where you or your loved ones are in the recovery journey, and to take that information and apply it in terms of finding housing near you, exploring your options, as well as the services and staff within potential housing types in your area. Last but not least, assessing financial considerations dives into several critical factors, including private pay, insurance if you have that, SSI, SSDI, Social Security, disability insurance, navigating Medicaid, Medicare, or housing vouchers, and ultimately understanding the various financial support and grants available through generous organizations out there. Next slide, please. The very final part of our toolkit brings together all previous parts and worksheets in order to build a clear, personalized roadmap. Within this part, you'll be able to assess fit and suitability for a housing option, follow prompts to schedule a tour, try to coordinate care, and navigate the legal protections generally available. It's also important to note that within a housing option, sometimes that option may change as an individual may gradually need more support or may navigate towards being more independent. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, each of the content parts do tie into worksheets that enable you to engage with the content, log the information for you. You can save and download the worksheets as you visit them. We don't save any responses or keep any documentation. Ultimately, these worksheets are designed to help build your plan, keep documentation about what's happening, and continue to make progress while navigating this roadmap built and guided through the toolkit overall. Next slide, please. You can access our housing toolkit through this QR link. I'm also going to drop a link in the chat within the Whova app that you can click on and be able to access. There's a note that you'll have to fill out a very short form, just your name and your email. Helps us see who's engaging with our content. But from there, you'll be able to access all of our housing parts, the introduction document overviewing our toolkit, as well as the interactive worksheets to document and log your progress as you explore the various options available. Next slide, please. So for the purposes of this webinar, we will go into breakout rooms. What it sounds like with the number of folks we have here, we'll probably actually do the breakout rooms in the main room, given the number of folks, but we'll go through the three primary topics of importance that we'd like to explore together. Understanding the complexity of financial considerations, evaluating available housing options in your state and nearby, as well as assessing your loved one's needs and map them to housing. So next slide, please. So in our breakout room, actually our main room, we'll each overview the content for the toolkit. We'll sort of explore a couple of questions related to navigating the content in the toolkit and consider improvements to what's there, and ultimately share reflections overall as a team. I go to the next slide. So I'll put a link, I'll put in the chat these questions that we'll be exploring together. But essentially we'll take a look at the main content for each of the three toolkit sections described. We'll look at the worksheets, and then we'll also explore a few questions overall. So for the toolkit content, how does the content apply or not in your situation with a client, a loved one? For the worksheets, what would better help in documenting and keeping track of these considerations? The three sort of main questions overall. One, what are additional important considerations when searching for housing? Two, how could future toolkit versions include concrete improvements and upgrades, as well as what top three toolkit features or attributes would be most useful in building your action plan. If we have time, we'll touch on what challenges addressed in the toolkit are the most urgent advocacy or policy making needs. So with that said, since given the number of attendees, let's stay in the main room. Joe, would you like to go over the content for assessing your loved one?
Absolutely. Okay. Okay, so today I will be talking about navigating housing for a loved one. We're going to determine the situation and age, personal status, and assess the loved one's clinical requirements and medication and treatment management. When you are determining your loved one's situation, you have to realize that housing is not a one size fits all. The unique requirements do begin with age. So younger adults are often transitional, so they might want structured support and more communities in order to thrive. Adults in their 40s have later worked, lived independently, or raised a family. So they would like to have housing options with autonomy, but also have mental health access available. Older adults in their 60s will require housing with age-friendly benefits. As far as personal status, we want to start with a clear understanding of how schizophrenia is currently impacting your loved one. So for safety and stability, you might want a secure, calm environment with physical and emotional security features. Another thing to consider is hobbies and activities. In order to stay mentally well, a lot of people need to have hobbies, group activities, wellness, and it's important for everybody with this illness to have access to things that are fun. Social connection and belonging is another level and type of desired interaction. And it would be helpful to have a sense of belonging coming from loved ones or chosen family. Life goals and personal strengths are also tailored to housing options. If somebody is returning to work, pursuing education, focusing on wellness, you may need vocational training programs, support groups, access to libraries and educational resources. The option of living at home can be a little bit complicated. It may be the most affordable and supportive solution and give comfort and ability to closely monitor mental health and medications. But there needs to be a respectful dialogue about the family's capacity to meet the evolving needs of the loved one. It can become complex if symptoms become harder to manage or if financial challenges and emotional stress happen. Um, Regular discussions, checking in about household rules, boundaries, responsibilities can ensure that care feels balanced and manageable. A therapist can help mediate these conversations, and there's also some resources that could be helpful. The next thing you want to assess is your loved one's clinical requirements. So, when this comes to housing, that includes symptom management. The four symptoms we're going to talk about today are positive, negative, cognitive, and more. An example of positive symptoms that are frequent and intense might want to choose a structured housing environment with readily available support. So you want to know if trained staff are available, peer specialists for added support, quiet spaces for decompression, and crisis protocols. When negative symptoms such as low motivation or social withdrawal, you want to be supported by housing that offers routine and structure, gentle prompts, and opportunities for social engagements. For me, when I've had negative symptoms in the past, I could have benefited from all of these things. Um, and that would be like a more structured type of household that may be better to be away from family as long as somebody is offering that structure and professional support. Cognitive symptoms make it hard to manage everyday tasks. So you want to know if staff or family members can help with meal planning, medical appointments, or medication reminders. You want to make sure there will be technology, step-by-step supports used, and noticing and addressing cognitive changes. Some additional symptoms to think about are anosognosia, which is lack of insight. It makes it harder for people to accept housing, therapy, treatment support, medication, and it's something that you want to work through with a provider. Medication side effects can also affect if a housing environment would be helpful. Withdrawal symptoms may disrupt the routines, and it's important professionals do tapering and detox. Mood changes may also have impact on considerations. For example, I have schizoaffective disorder, so the bipolar component of symptoms might include mania, which is elevated or irritable mood and impulsive behavior, or depression, which is persistent status and low energy. So at both extremes, you may require different levels of service and meeting needs for any of these symptoms. There's a lot of factors to put in consideration when managing with your loved one. There is a degree of illness progression. So for some people, what we'd like ideally to happen is to leave severe symptoms, psychosis begin easing, and manage to have manageable symptoms that cause minimal disruption. With that
Sorry,
happening,
Joe.
yes.
Sorry, just give me one moment here to jump in. I know we're coming up on time since we have about 20 minutes left here.
Yeah.
But overall, looking at part one, we cover various symptoms, challenges of navigating symptoms and how housing can help address that. The rest of this document sort of looks at the loved one situation and how that applies to housing. So I really want to thank you, Joe, for outlining that. Let's go into more about evaluating options, and so that we can spend a few minutes for each of the two other sections and kind of go into our discussion session. Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate that.
Thank you. Let's see. I'm having a little trouble with the screen share here. Let's just try this and see if that works. Okay.
Oh, I don't think
There
that. Oh, there we go. That looks like
There we have it. There we have it. Okay. So once you've assessed your loved one's needs, the next step would be what the heck is going to be available in the area in which they want to live, whether it's your state or anybody else, or a relocation that they would like to do. So I'm just going to give you the broad overview here. This is my favorite section of the toolbook. It is 32 pages long, or the toolkit. It's 32 pages long, and it is chock full of resources and links that you can just bop around and figure out solutions. So the first section is who can help you find housing, whether those are, social workers or public services or your state's Division of Mental Health, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, your local public housing agency. There are at least 10 that I see here, and we give you even more in that section. The next section in assessing housing in your state is understanding housing options. So just the different types of housing, like long-term versus short-term, how to evaluate a facility and score it, how other places score it or evaluate it or rate it, and understanding those ratings. And then go visit. We have a worksheet where you can take it right into the facility and visit that and look at how is the staff interacting with the people that live in that environment. What is the environment aesthetic like? Is it peaceful? Is it happy? Are there clinicians there that would be enough to support your loved one? And then an overview of supportive housing would be more about a higher level of support with long-term facilities, supervised group homes, and then less supportive like apartment housing and using Section 8. So there's a bunch of places to look, needless to say. And one of the biggest things we hear from families and people with lived experience is that housing feels like a giant maze with no map. And honestly, that's pretty accurate. Different states and different countries have different programs, but some of the websites look like they were built in a basement in 1999, so they're very difficult to navigate. But there are professionals out there to help you. So let's look at that first. We have a little section here in this part about finding housing in any state is difficult. And then we go right into who can help you find housing. Mention those in the table of contents. Websites you can use, how you can use AI to help you find housing, public services, such as the U.S. Department of Housing and your state facilities. If housing doesn't exist at all near you, which is the case in some situations, here are your other options. Consider how your benefits will transfer. Research neighboring states. And then we have a very thorough chart here about whether long-term options or short-term options would be the best for you. And looking at each of our things, the staff, the structure, the services, how long will your loved one stay there, and can you pay for it? Considerations here about long-term versus short-term care to help. And then understanding that scoring and evaluation system. So this section is just chock full of actual links and resources and places and people that can help you. And a little bit about determining the level of support that your loved one needs. So I think I can give back some time on that unless anyone has some questions about this part. Okay, then I'm going to turn it over to Davey to talk about the financial considerations.
Great. Thank you so much, Erica. Let me share. You have to stop sharing. There you go. All right. So last but not least, recognize that a significant challenge in not only trying to find options available in your area is also navigating financial considerations. So it's quite critical to understand what sources you have available, the costs involved, supports that are available in case you are able to afford those particular accommodations of treatment and housing. So within this document, we sort of overview the various types of considerations as attached to financials. So if you have the means, exploring what private pay or insurance might look like, what sort of examples would apply in terms of using private pay and insurance. Then that could be in terms of finding a group home, renting an apartment, engaging in assisted living facilities, or navigating residential treatment options. From here, we then go into some additional points regarding using private pay or insurance, how sometimes having a roommate or renting might be an option when you can connect that with supports and treatments outside of the home, but nearby. So we sort of have links here to kind of understand what that could look like, the considerations in navigating that part. Then diving a bit into Medicare and Medicaid, recognizing what can be funded, what cannot, and sort of navigating a bit of the nuances with trying to apply to get either Medicaid and or Medicare to cover healthcare needs while navigating housing supports. There are some considerations for both, as well as the particulars that will be updated across time as things may or may not change with both. Here we then look into SSI and following SSI, SSDI, considerations regarding how this is a type of financial assistance might be used for folks who have a disability, as well as some of the aspects of it being a delicate balance and having income while securing housing, the caps related to increased income. So we dive a bit into that here and some more, as well as links to the relevant pages to help further understand those particular components. And then last but not least, we also look into a bit of the financial supports available, different nonprofits that offer resources, financial help, limited time grants to help with the process of finding a home or finding a more stable place to live. So financial considerations is a bit of a shorter document compared to the others, but certainly touches on a number of important topics here. And I know we're coming up on time. We originally budgeted a bit of time for us to go into breakouts, reflect, and come back. But I think we should probably combine that together a bit in this last couple of minutes that we're here.
Yeah, I had an idea, Davey. Since they had the QR code that takes them to our site, if everyone was able to use that, they could go look at the section that most interested them from our discussion here today and give them a couple minutes to do that and come back and we can ask our discussion questions and answer their questions that are in the chat. Does that seem like a reasonable idea?
Yeah,
do all the participants have access to the QR code in the site? Raise your hand or speak up if you do not. Okay, let's give you a few minutes. We were going to do this in the breakout rooms anyway, let you have the materials to look at. Go visit our site, click on one of the sections we just discussed, and think about our 3 questions. How does the content apply to you or your loved one, or how could you apply it? And what are important considerations maybe that we didn't mention, and how could we improve? Okay, so we'll give you the next 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to go to our site. We're proud of it. Click around, find the section that you would like to comment on, and come back. We need some elevator music here now.
It sounds like with the folks that we have here, let's make that feedback a bit asynchronous. So let's go to the last two slides in that deck. So thank you for joining us. Let Erica speak to that. The opportunity to provide a bit of feedback, look at the toolkit, share your thoughts. And I'll hand over to Erica to
Sure.
wrap us up.
So, I know we had to abbreviate the time there, but I would like to give our participants time to comment and on any one of the sections. And then we can answer the two questions that are in the chat. So did you see any particular content in any of the three sections that we demoed today that would apply to you, your work, your family, your loved ones, your situation? You know why I'm so blurry. I'm not sure why that is. Well, secondly, do you see any glaring things or gaps that we could address differently in the next iteration of the toolkit? Something that you think is missing? And this may be better addressed by talking about your two questions here, because they could be things that are missing. One of you asks, Sharita, you asked, are you or your organization willing to partner with a reentry home for women? Sharita, could you come on camera? I'm not on camera at the moment, but I'm a ghost. Okay, well, Sharita, that's an interesting prospect. I think the organization is more than willing to partner with anyone for reentry homes specific to women. I would like to know more about that from you. So please use that QR code, and my email is easily found on our site. So I would be more than happy to talk to you about that. I think women do have special considerations and might like to be in a community with other women. So yeah, let's talk more about that. And then the second question, how can we advocate for more youth exclusive housing? This is huge to me. We do a lot of work on first episode psychosis, and the idea that we could have youth housing specific to SMI that is much better suited and exclusive for young people, I think is super important as well. And I will go back to my experts on our team and talk about both of these things and be prepared with answers. So you can email me, erica.tingler@sczaction.org, which of course you can find on the website as well. Any other questions off the top here? We have about 7 minutes and we still have 8 people out there. So these would be questions that came up as we were talking about the sections, or questions that you might have in general about the housing toolkit, or other ideas for future iterations of the housing toolkit.
Seems like we have a bit of a shy audience, so you're also more than welcome to use the survey link here to share your feedback offline.
Yeah, take a moment if you want to now. This QR code will take you to a form that you can put any questions or feedback into. We'll give you a minute to do that. We've had it up there a while, so they probably have the QR code. We could go to the next slide. And you or your organization looking to partner in any way with us, including any gift that you would like to do to support specifically the housing toolkit and the search engine part, the phase 2, please scan this QR code to figure out how you can best support this specific effort to expand the education, connection, and actionable hope to our whole community. And some of the second section of that talks about co-branding, or maybe developing the housing toolkit in your brand so that you can have it. Those are all things we're thinking about. So the two questions in the chat are kind of relevant to that. If you are looking to or aware of an organization that is a reentry home for women, we could brand the toolkit for you and you could offer it to your community. That's one idea for a collaboration. Same for the youth exclusive housing. And there's a special section we didn't go over in detail that is college and university students and how they might need special consideration. So if we don't have any more questions or feedback, I just want to thank everyone for attending today. Also want to thank Maddie once again for being our technical support and our fantastic community members, Davey and Joe, for their support. And my apologies for my blurry image. I'm not sure what happened there, but you did see me early on. So thank you for being patient with the technology. It actually went pretty well. And please look us up for any of the resources that we talked about today. Davey or Joe, did you have anything to add?
Thank you so much for attending today.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, adapting with us as we showcase and preview the toolkit. Stay tuned to learn more, and we'll certainly have more updates coming up. Thank you so much for joining us and staying with us throughout the session.
Tune into our social channels, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and X, where we will be posting about the housing toolkit, and look for it in the news, particularly with health journalism and mental health journalism and other health magazines and Psych Times as well. That's the website you can find us on. So thanks, everyone.
Great.
Hope to see you at this next year.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Stay with us, speakers.
Yes.
Let's hop on Teams.
Yep.